I put spikes on the edge of my yard after my neighbor kept destroying my mom's flowers. My mom moved back to Mexico 2 years ago, but before she left, she planted these beautiful red roses right along the edge of our front yard. They're literally the only thing I have left of her, and I water them every single morning thinking about how much she loved gardening. My neighbor's daughter, Kelly, is probably in her late 20s and drives this beat-up silver Honda. Every day when she comes home from work, instead of carefully backing into their driveway, she just cuts straight through my yard and rolls right over my mom's flower bed like it's a shortcut. The first few times it happened, I didn't say anything because I didn't want drama with the neighbors. I figured maybe she just wasn't paying attention or didn't realize she was crushing the flowers. But after like the 10th time, I could see she was doing it on purpose because it was easier than backing out properly. I decided to put up some barriers to protect the roses. I went to Home Depot and bought these 3-inch tall decorative bricks and cemented them into the ground along the edge of my yard. Nothing aggressive, just enough to mark where my property line was and hopefully make her think twice. 2 weeks later, I came home from work to find 3 of my bricks completely knocked out of the ground. There were deep tire marks in the dirt where she'd just plowed right through them. Half of my mom's roses were crushed and broken. I walked over to their house and politely knocked on the door. When Kelly answered, I explained what happened and asked if she could please be more careful when parking. She looked at me with this smug smile and goes, "Maybe don't put your panties in a bunch over some stupid rocks in the dirt." Then she actually laughed and closed the door in my face. I went home and fixed the bricks, spending my whole Saturday re-cementing them and trying to save what was left of the roses. But Kelly knocked them down 5 more times over the next month. Each time, more flowers got destroyed. I was getting desperate, so I called our HOA office to see what I was legally allowed to do. The woman on the phone told me there were no restrictions on what I could put on my own property to keep vehicles off my yard. That gave me an idea. I went back to Home Depot and bought concrete mix, some wooden molds, and a box of 3-inch nails. I spent my weekend making new barriers that looked exactly like the old bricks, except these had nails poking out about half an inch. I placed them in the exact same spots along my property line. From a distance, they looked identical to the harmless decorative bricks I'd had before. The next morning, I watched through my kitchen window as Kelly came speeding into her driveway like always. She hit my new concrete barriers with her usual carelessness, heard the scraping sound, and just kept going without checking what happened. When she tried to leave for work 2 hours later, both her passenger side tires were completely flat. I watched her get out of the car, walk around to inspect the damage, and then see the nails sticking out of my barriers. Her face turned bright red and she started screaming obscenities at my house. 20 minutes later, 2 police officers showed up at my door. Kelly had called them claiming I vandalized her car and demanding I pay for new tires. But when the cops saw that the barriers were clearly on my property and that Kelly had been repeatedly driving across my yard despite warnings, they told her she was responsible for her own damages. One officer even chuckled and said, "Ma'am, if you don't want to get nails in your tires, maybe don't drive over someone else's yard." Kelly hasn't driven through my flowers once since that day. She actually backs out of her driveway properly now like a normal person. I ended up removing the spiked barriers and putting regular bricks back up. My mom's roses are finally growing back thick and beautiful, and every morning when I water them, I smile, knowing she'd be proud of how I protected her garden.